If every time you start trying to lose weight, you end up making excuses and you end up putting the gym off or you end up cheating on your diet, then I know that this video will change your life. Hi, my name's Clara. I'm a chartered psychologist, a healthcare professions council registered sport and exercise psychologist, and a fitness coach. And I've been working in the fitness industry for over half a decade, helping people just like you develop the mindset skills necessary to be able to make the changes to their life, start losing weight and maintain that weight loss over time. And now the clickbaity words and the hook is out of the way, I can tell you that I hate and don't believe in the word excuses, nor do I believe in the term cheat days when it comes to food. So let's get that straight. And yeah, in this video, I'm going to tell you a bit more about how to become more disciplined with your weight loss goals. But I'm not going to be using that word either because I don't really like it and I don't believe in discipline, the like hardcore bro way that people put it across all the time in the fitness industry. What I'm going to talk you through is exactly how to become more committed to your values and what I think are the essential steps that you need to take to be able to get yourself into the right headspace to be able to commit to the goals that you set yourself to intentionally lose weight and keep that weight off over time without having to continuously struggle with the on and off, all or nothing, binge, restrict, the whole rest of its cycle for the rest of your life. Because that's the goal, right? We don't just want to lose weight for the sake of it, especially if you spend so many years hating your body, going about feeling utterly disgusted, telling yourself, right, that's it, I'm fed up, I've had it, nothing fits, I feel gross, I feel puffy, I'm not sleeping well, I need to make a change. You keep doing the healthy food shop, you keep emptying the pantry, and then you set your alarm for like 6 a.m. the next day. On a Monday, you know you're going to be starting fresh, and before you know it, you fucking snoozed it, and then it gets to 5 p.m. after work, and you're like, oh, it's fine, I can go to the gym tomorrow. And the cycle repeats itself so much so that it gets to Wednesday afternoon, maybe even Thursday if you manage to stretch it out, that you say, well, I've not made it to the gym yet, and like I'm really freaking hungry, so like I'm just going to press the fuck it button and just start again next week. How many times have you done that cycle over and over? I don't want you to continue stuck in that loop, and I know how frustrating and how distressing it can become to realize that no amount of like wanting to lose weight and no amount of that sort of like future thinking and wanting to make changes makes it any easier to make those changes in the moment, right? Like we all know that, you know, theoretically, if we stuck to the goals, if we did the things, we would achieve the weight loss. However, it's the moment-by-moment decisions that make it inextricably difficult to adhere to weight loss goals. So what can you actually do to make that different, and what can you do to break that cycle for yourself? There's two main things that I think are most important and that I do with every single one of my clients that I help and that I have helped in the last sort of 6+ years. And of course, following these steps is what has helped my clients lose weight, keep it off, get to the gym, eat more consistently, do all that stuff, live a better life, feel happier, feel more confident, all of it. The first most important thing, in my opinion, is that you need to identify your values. And this goes beyond the fitness industries, like, oh, like what is your why? Your values are your intrinsic core, I guess, beliefs or things that matter the most to you, right? I like to think of values as directions on a compass. And if you've worked with me, then you'll have heard me talk about this before. But essentially, values are like directions on the compass. If I choose that I want to move east, no matter how far east I go, I never actually arrive at east. It is simply a chosen direction that I would like to move towards. Our values work in very, very similar ways in that if we care about, let's just say, adventure, then how we define adventure, how we express that adventure, how we engage in that value from a behavioral perspective, which makes it sound like a total clinician and a psychologist as I say that, but how we do that is entirely up to us. It's for us to define, and we never arrive at adventure. It is simply a chosen direction, right? And so when we identify our values and when we identify what values of our life would be more fulfilled or what values we'd be able to move towards more, should we engage in the things that are going to help us elicit fat loss, then we're going to be far more committed to those values simply by virtue of the fact that they speak to the things that matter the most to us, right? If I tell myself that I want to lose weight because I want to feel good in my skin, then that means absolutely fucking nothing to anybody. And I'm going to forget that in the moment when I have a stressful day, or when I have a craving, or when I want to have like a cheeky little whatever, or when I'm really tired and I don't want to go to the gym, even though I actually don't have any time in the rest of the week to be able to go and do that workout, right? However, if I've made the link between weight loss and my values, again, using the example of adventure here, if I have identified that my weight at the moment is getting in the way of my confidence, and my confidence is getting in the way of me going and, you know, having more spontaneous adventures, maybe like traveling, because I'm noticing that, you know, because of the excess weight that I'm carrying or the discomfort that I have in my body more generally, that I feel like I can't go on airplanes, or I can't go to cities, or I can't wear the clothes that I want to wear on holiday. And that is then stopping me from living a life that is meaningful and that is fulfilling and that brings me a lot of joy, then that's a very, very different story. Then I can start to link the steps I need to take to move me towards intentional weight loss with the fact that I want to feel confident to go and do my adventures, to do things that are value aligned, to be spontaneous, anything and everything that kind of comes with that, right? So it's almost like an extension of know your why. It is understand who you are, get to know yourself, and get to know and think about how will you taking the steps to move you towards intentional weight loss help you do the things that you care about in life better, right? How will you going to the gym more regularly, moving more regularly, like kind of day-to-day sort of physical activity? How will you tending to your nutritional intake, eating more fruit and veg, having a more protein heavy diet? How will all of those things, drinking more water, sleeping better, the whole rest of it, how will you doing those things consistently help you move towards doing and living a life that is more meaningful and more fulfilling and that brings you more joy, a life that is worth living? Because at the end of the day, more often than not, the reasons we want to lose weight is because we experience our current weight as something that is getting in the way of us being able to enjoy life the way that we imagine ourselves being able to enjoy it when we lose weight. And again, I'm not here to say whether weight loss is right or wrong and who should and who shouldn't lose weight and blah, blah, blah. I'm not here to add any morality to weight loss because I don't know you. I don't know how you feel in your body, and I can never know how you feel in your body. So I'm not here to demonize weight loss. What I am here to say is that when we move towards intentional weight loss from a place of it being aligned with our values, not only is it more sustainable because the steps that we might take towards that are more value aligned, right? If I am taking, let's just say again with adventure, if I care about adventure, but the goals that I set myself for weight loss are so extreme, so cumbersome that it comes to the end of the week and I've got no energy to go on my adventures, then I'm not actually moving towards my values, right? So it's actually a really good way to calibrate how we move towards those goals. So not only is it more sustainable, but it also helps us calibrate how we approach those goals. And it also means that we're far better able to identify when we feel like we have achieved a lifestyle balance that is sufficient, that is enough for us. Again, we live in a society in which, extreme weight loss has been glorified. I'm a millennial, and so I've certainly grown up with this idea that like nothing tastes better than skinny feels. And so understanding and sort of knowing where that threshold or where that limit is, it's really difficult because what is enough? Actually, nobody's really defining that for us. And in a culture that kind of glorifies perfectionism, then it's really fucking difficult to know. So being able to kind of identify that through our values is a really, really tangible way and a safe way to move towards intentional weight loss without running the risk of it becoming too extreme, too excessive, or potentially kind of, creating any risk for disordered eating and or disordered exercise relationships. So that's why I think that identifying your values and starting with that is probably one of the most important things that you can do to actually get yourself to be more disciplined, because when you identify your values and when you identify why it is that you're actually wanting to move towards intentional weight loss, why does it matter that you're doing these things that are really fucking difficult to maintain, that are really difficult and challenging to do all the time? When you know why you're doing that, it's far easier to become more committed towards taking those steps. And granted, there's always a million different psychological barriers that might get in the way, but I have created a free, literally completely free 5-minute video that you can watch and download, and a step-by-step guide to set yourself value-based goals to make sure that you actually think about all the different psychological barriers that can get in the way of you taking that committed action, and you can find it just in the description. But yeah, values, number one, probably one of the most important things that you need in order to become more disciplined, or in this case, more committed towards taking the steps consistently that are going to help you with intentional weight loss. And it's such a mouthful, but I want to be specific with nuance and with context, because I don't want just to be flippant when I'm talking about fat loss and intentional weight loss. And the second thing, which if you've watched any of my other content, you will not be surprised to hear, the thing that I think is most important to be able to become more disciplined with weight loss is developing a better self-esteem and a higher self-worth. And you might be thinking, Clara, how on earth does that even relate to me becoming more disciplined? Well, let me just tell you this. When you don't feel good enough, so when your self-worth is really low, or when you have like an absolutely net zero self-esteem, you're much more likely to end up setting yourself very high standard perfectionistic goals that are going to move you towards weight loss, right? You're more likely to set extreme goals that don't actually meet you where you're at, because your self-worth is in such a low place that you want to get basically as far away as you possibly can from that as quickly as possible, which is totally understandable, right? I'm not criticizing that at all, because it makes sense. Like, of course you would. If you don't feel good right now, why would you not want to feel better, right? The risk of that though is that when you set yourself goals that are so essentially far removed from where you're at right now, or the expectation and the standard is perhaps not really meeting you where you're at, you're more likely to fail at those goals, right? And when you fail, all those feelings of not being good enough that you were trying to escape from the beginning, they are going to be amplified by a million. And when those feelings are amplified by a million, in the absence of any other tools of knowing how to cope with that psychological distress, with that shame, what you're going to end up doing is pressing the fuck it button. Like, that is why you will end up binge eating. That's why you'd end up, ghosting the gym, essentially avoiding encountering any kind of feeling of not being good enough, even if you know that doing something like having a biscuit and carrying on with the rest of your day as usual is completely and utterly fine, but your mind is interpreting that as such an epic failure, such a kind of confirmation of the fact that you're not good enough, that if you don't have any other psychological tools to cope with that, like, you are just going to end up pressing the fuck it button. And when you do that, of course, you end up, going off piste for I don't even know how long. And eventually you're like, YOLO, I don't care. But eventually you will feel terrible again. And those feelings of not being good enough that were there to begin with, like that low self-worth that was there to begin with, is only going to be magnified, tenfold or more, because you've actually just taken yourself through the cycle that, let's be honest, if you're watching this video, you've probably been through a million times before. So working your self-esteem is actually incredibly crucial and incredibly important. And I know that you're probably thinking that, you can work on your self-esteem once you lose weight, and that you probably feel better in yourself when you do lose the weight. But I know that you've got pictures and photos of times in your life where you have been leaner than you are now, where you still felt fat, where you still felt disgusting, and all that led you to do is to gain more weight and to find yourself in the position that you are now. So it doesn't work like that. You cannot bypass working on your self-esteem. And if you've been through this process a million times before, I know that what you need is essentially like a bit of a fat loss mindset reset. And that is why I've created this 4-week program completely for free. Again, I'm doing this deliberately because I want to help you. I am sick and tired of the fitness industry capitalizing on people's distress and giving shitty advice. It's why I've created the 4-week fat loss mindset reset program, 4 weeks to build your self-esteem from the ground up, which again, you can download in the link in the description. Again, I'm not trying to be like icky salesy here, but genuinely everything that I do with every single one of my clients who wants to work with me to lose weight is in those 4 weeks completely for free. So basically, if you go to the description, you can firstly set yourself some value-based fat loss goals and then download the 4-week free program that is going to set you up for success with intentional weight loss without running any of the risks that you've maybe encountered before from a psychological perspective. Because I know that intentional weight loss is a risk factor for disordered eating. I know it's a risk factor for disordered exercise. Of course I know that. I'm a psychologist. It is my job to be aware of that, to manage that risk, and to work with you to be able to support you through that. And in these tools, all the things that are in there are guaranteed to reduce the risk that you would encounter any of those difficulties, especially compared to downloading an 8-week fat loss shred that is potentially going to put you significantly more at risk of developing a lot of problems, psychological problems especially, later down the line. And again, if you're watching this video, it tells me that it's probably because you've already done that and you know this. So to summarize, the 2 main ways that you can become more disciplined or more committed with intentional weight loss is, number 1, identifying your values. Why does this matter? How will intentional weight loss actually help you live a more meaningful and more fulfilling and a more joyous life? Identifying those things, setting yourself some value-based goals is going to be the first crucial step to being able to be more committed to that, and thinking about what are some of the barriers that are going to come up is going to be necessary. And the second thing that you need to do if you're really committed to this is build your self-esteem, build your self-worth. You need to act like you care about yourself to be able to stay committed to intentional weight loss. And if you want to do that, again, head to the description, click on the links in there, and you will be sorted for the next 4 weeks and beyond. And that brings me to the end of this video. So thank you so much as always for watching. If you did enjoy the video, make sure to give it a like, make sure to subscribe to my channel so you don't miss out on any videos in the future, and I look forward to seeing you very soon.